Alright, this time we're gonna try something a little different. With Ash's run in the anime and the Ghost Game series ending at about the same time, I thought now would be a pretty good time to do something related to both of them. So I decided, hey, let's try a style swap. Inspired by the work of Jess Jackdaw and a few other creative artists, I'm gonna take a few Pokemon and a few Digimon and swap their styles around so they look like they're from each other's series. I put together 2 big lists for both series, which equal to about the same number, which includes a bunch of forms, modes, and other junk. This was not easy to do, especially considering Digimon don't have an exact number system like Pokemon, but major thanks to those who laid the groundwork for these lists. Anyway, we're gonna spin a wheel to see who we end up working with. Though, because the wheel has a limit, we're gonna keep it to the first 151. That seems like a good starting point. Alright, let's start by picking our first Pokemon. Looks like we're starting off with Pidgey. Fitting that we start this journey with a Route 1 bird. Like many of the older and Western fans, I started off with Pokemon Blue version. Though the first Pokemon I caught was not Pidgey, but actually Rattata. I don't remember a whole lot of my first playthrough all those years ago, but I do remember catching a rat before anything else. That, and of course, I picked Charmander as the starter. Charizard's the best. Anyway, when adapting this bird to the Watanabe style, which is basically muscular with some battle damage on it, partially his words, not mine, I may be paraphrasing a little bit, I decided to give Pidgey some scratches and of course some little veins around the legs. Not unlike some of the other bird Digimon. I had to try to make sure to get the right style of eyes for this thing, because a lot of people critique some of the modern Pokemon to look like Digimon. That idea never stuck with me, mostly because Digimon have a very specific sort of way eyes look, which makes them pretty easy to identify, at least for me. Anyway, with some heavy inks and a little tooth to give an extra bit of edge, our Pidgey's done. Alright, time for our first Digimon. Pokemon. Interesting. At first I was worried that this might be a little too simplistic, because the design already looks very Pokemon-esque with the little beady eyes and the cute round appearance. But then I remembered, Togemon's got those gnarly chompers. I don't know whose idea it was to give one of the cutest designs this freaky maw of teeth, but makes things a little more interesting. Obviously, I had to simplify those teeth down a bit because realistic, pokey, jagged teeth don't really fit with the average Pokemon design. So I decided to go with a more saw-like design for the mouth, but also keep the little upper lip. Kind of make it something like a little trap-ish creature, where it's like, oh, a cute little thing. It lifts up its maw and takes a bite out of you. I thought that'd be a fun little design. With a few simple shades and a little dash of color to its eyes, our Toko's done. Alright, time for our next Pokemon. And it's Arbok. Cool. So this one I got to go a little more wild with. I borrowed some inspiration from a couple Snake Digimon as well as some of the more serpentine designs like from Airdramon and Seedramon. The biggest challenge I found was with that hood, because normally with Arbok that hood is just kind of like a big inflatable tube thing instead of wrapping around a neck like an actual Cobra hood. So I did what I could to make the pattern wrap around the neck without it looking too weird. Overall, I think it came out pretty nice. Even if ultimately it looks like a big veiny cobra. I know I went on this whole thing about how Digimon eyes look, but the snake ones for some reason go for the more viper slit-like eye, so I decided, why not, let's go with that. Anyway, snake's done. Time for the next Digimon. And it's Mojimon. So while the last one was pretty much Arbok with a lot more details, this one's Mojimon, but with fewer details. Okay, not exactly. I did kind of extend the beards and other fur bits a little on this one. I could have just made this Galarian Darmanitan without the fro and called it a day, but I wanted to try a less humanoid direction with this. I noticed that, with a few exceptions, a lot of humanoid-looking Pokemon don't go for the full 5-finger thing. That is, unless it's supposed to be human or an ape or something like that. But I decided to take a cue from its ears and go for a more bear Ewok-like thing. So in addition to giving it some softer features and a little snowball, I cut down the amount of digits it had. Maybe I could have also shortened it by a couple inches, but I'm overall pretty happy with the design. Our final Pokemon is gonna be... Magneton. Ooh, a challenge. So for this one, I didn't want to go all in on the normal design, which is just 3 magnets put together. I wanted something that felt like one single being, so I decided to just smash them all together. I got the idea when thinking about some of the older Gen 1 sprites where stuff like Execute would have just one huge member of the group among all the smaller ones. So I decided to just have like one main brain magnet and have the other 2 act like extra servos or something like that. I also wanted to give it that sort of less refined machine edge that a lot of early Digimon sort of had. And I think it came out pretty nice. I had an idea to have like an electric current to sort of bind all the little parts together, but I wasn't really a fan of how that ended up looking, so I decided to just go with the sort of invisible field look. Plus, it harkens back to the original design a little better. And our final Digimon is... Saber-Leomon. Ooh. So given Mega Digimon are supposed to be a much rarer occurrence naturally in the digital world, it seemed only fitting to make the designs seem more like legendary Pokemon. And with how modern legendary Pokemon look, that means I don't really have to trim down on too many details. Just kind of softening things up and don't add as many veins. I took notes from a few cat and cat-like Pokemon to see how the legs and toes looked on them. Most have only 3 toes, which, as you could tell, I had to change up a little bit. Also, the claws don't really protrude as much unless they're actually attacking. So pretty much everything around the legs got simplified a bit. I wanted to fit in those little elbow blades it has into the design a bit, so I took a note from a couple Pokemon and kind of just shaved the forelimbs a bit. It does give the design a bit more contrast, though I had to be careful with the highlights so it doesn't look like it's wearing leather boots. I also simplified the little details on the saber fangs a bit, just because I didn't want to go through and add each little etching there, and just went with a simple sort of blocky zigzag pattern along the sides, which I think still looks kind of nice. As for the eyes, I went with something that was a bit of a mix between a few different cat Pokemon and legendary Pokemon, which is basically like a white pupil with a couple different colored irises and sclera, which gives a bit of an interesting look to it. When looking at the eyes of older designs and newer designs, and yes, I realize I've been talking about eyes a whole lot in this video, but in older designs, the eyes are very simplistic. Usually it's just a white shape with a little black pupil, and that's kind of it for the most part. Meanwhile, some of the newer ones have more unique and defined looks to them. I like both of them, and both of them have their place. I just find it interesting to compare them. But yeah, as you can tell, this one took the longest to design. You think the Digimon ones, with all the crazy details and junk added to them, that those would take the longest, but no. With those, you can kind of just go hog wild. With Pokemon, you kind of have to keep a consistent look to them. So while one is going crazy with all the stuff you want to add to it, the other is showing a bit of restraint and trying to pick and choose what to keep and what to remove. Anyway, while unintentional, I imagine if Sabreleomon were a Pokemon, he would probably be an electric type. Just because with Pokemon, the color scheme and design kind of gives you a hint as to what the type would be. So I'm thinking electric, maybe electric fighting, or electric dark, hard to say. Both would be pretty cool. And with that, our team of 6 is completed. This was a fun little challenge, something I might do again in the near future. If this is something you'd also like to see more of, let me know. Maybe we'll do Gen 2. But until next time, see ya!